the easiest things you can do to prepare as a candidate to have a great interview is have great questions to ask the person interviewing you at the end of your interview. And this is no different when you're interviewing with Aldi. In today's video, I'm going to give you 5 great questions you can ask during your Aldi interview to impress the person interviewing you and ultimately increase the likelihood of you getting a job. Now, this is video 4 in a 4-part series. So if this is the first video you're seeing, make sure you go back to the playlist and watch the first 3. They are great videos. And at the very end of the video, I'm actually going to tee up another video right here that's going to help you specifically interview and get off to a great start when you interview with Aldi. All right, let's go. Now, first things first, most candidates do not ask great questions at the end of the interview. Some candidates don't ask any. And when that happens, the hiring manager or the recruiter, well, they determine that you're not that interested in their role. But having great questions can set you apart from other candidates and increase the likelihood that you get a job offer. So let's jump into some of the questions. Now, the first question is, what does this person need to accomplish in the first 90 days for you to consider this hire to be a success? This is a great question. It's a classic question, and I would never have an interview without asking this question because I want to understand their expectations for success. What if they're incredibly high? Well, you probably want to know that. What if they don't have an idea what success looks like? Well, you probably want to know that too. Either way, I always feel it's better to have more information than less information, and this is information you definitely want to have. Additionally, this makes you look like a success-oriented, future-thinking candidate. Great question to ask. Now, the next question is, what originally attracted you to a role at Aldi? This is a good question because it gives them an opportunity to talk, gives them an opportunity to talk about themselves, gives them an opportunity to talk a little bit about the organization, what was attractive. Generally speaking, people have a better recollection of an interaction between two people if they get to talk more. So giving them the opportunity to talk a little bit, talk about something they're passionate about, will generally speaking help them look back more fondly on this interview. It's also really good to sense their passion. Do they have passion here? Does it bleed through with their answer, or do they kind of seem a little lifeless when they're talking about it? I don't know, I needed a job and I had good experience and they had an opening. Well, that's not inspiring. But if they talk a little bit about how it's been a great decision, how they enjoy it, and you can sense the passion in their answer, well, it probably lets you know that this is going to be a good place to work. The next question I'd ask is, what does training and onboarding look like for this hire? This is a really good question because I want to know I am being set up for success. And the way they describe this, if it's in great detail and it's clearly thought out, planned out, and sounds successful, great. But if they don't know and they go, that's a good question. I don't know. HR usually involved, I think. Not inspiring. Doesn't give you confidence. So I like asking this because I want to understand if I get hired, what does that look like? It also shows them, once again, you're thinking about the right things. You're thinking about becoming an employee. You're thinking about being set up for success. This is the type of thing that you want them associating with you when it comes from, when it comes to interviewing and asking questions. So I think it's a great question to ask. It's one of those questions I always want to know because I want to know, if I take your job, am I being set up for success? The next question I like asking is, how would you describe your store's culture? This is a great question because you want to know, what is it like to work here? One of the biggest mistakes that you can make as a candidate is taking a job, committing to a job, just to find out it's a terrible place to work. Working in a toxic environment drains you. And if you can avoid that before going into it, well, you should. And this is one of the ways you can do it. Now, this doesn't guarantee based on their answer it's going to be a great place, but the reality is, if they talk about the culture of their store glowingly and they're passionate and you feel like it's an honest answer that's authentic, you have a better feeling going into working at that store. But if there's pause, if they don't seem overly optimistic, if there's hesitation when they talk about it, well, it might mean that store could be a difficult place for you to work. And generally speaking, you want that information. You want that information before you commit to going there. Another great question to ask, very positive. It gives you an opportunity to have a glimpse into what working there might be like. Now, the question I like to ask next, do you have any questions or concerns about my ability to do the job? I call this the closing question. It's usually the last question I ask, and it's really important because one of two things will happen. One, they'll say to you, no, Ben, I don't have any questions or concerns. I think you'd be a good fit for this. At which point you can respond affirming, saying, well, that's really great to hear. I'm very interested in the role and excited for next steps. Just letting them know, I am interested, right? You're doubling down. Every hiring manager wants to hire someone who is interested and wants their job. The other thing that could happen is they go, well, yeah, I actually do have some concerns. In the interview process, I didn't hear a lot about your point of sale technology experience or something like that. And what this does, it gives you the opportunity to rebuttal it. Now, when you rebuttal a concern in an interview, it's really important that you don't get defensive and you're gracious in the way you answer it. The way that typically looks is you say, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that information with me. I think I might not have done the best job in the interview explaining my experience with point of sale technology. When I worked for A, B, and C company, I actually had about 4 years experience using that type of technology, and I would actually consider it one of the strengths. So hopefully this makes you feel a little bit better about that, and I'm sorry I didn't give you as much information in the interview. That's a great way to rebuttal it. I've heard some people say to me, Ben, you don't want to bring up concerns in the interview, and I couldn't disagree more. Whether you address it or not, those concerns exist. But addressing it allows you to counter it in a productive way, which will increase the likelihood of you getting a job. Now, another thing that can increase the likelihood of you getting a job is really nailing the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes of the job. It's so important I made this video here, and it's how to get a job in 6 minutes. And it's the last thing I want you to go and do before your interview with Aldi to make sure you get off to a great start and you close in a highly effective way. So I'm done here. I'll see you over there.